Okay, you guys, so we're back with another one here. We got an Eco Temp package unit. Okay, safety first, guys. We're gonna shut the breaker down. We got a Federal Pacific. Ooh wait. We've got the motor here. It's Ultimate Truck Stock motor. It's a rescue motor. These are very good for getting you out of a bind if you don't go back with the OEM motor. This unit here is underneath an awning, which I'm not too big about because it's just going to try to recirculate that hot air. It's exhausting, but then again, I am pretty happy about it because it's about to rain and get nasty out, so I won't be getting wet. Whoa, oh, oh, oh. We got to get this fan out of here. So first things first, take the screws off the top here, and I'm gonna have to undo the wiring so that I can pull it out of there. This rescue motor is going to have its own capacitor. It's what we call a permanent split capacitor. Okay, so I'm gonna have to get in there at my needle nose. Not too concerned about messing this terminal up because we will be replacing all the wiring. You know, I don't like to do any of that cutting the wire here. I know I see it all the time where the guys will cut the wire right here and wire nut the new motor back to it. I'm not a big fan of that. It causes resistance in that wire, and it's not the proper way of doing it. So we got our wire unhooked to that motor, and now when I pull this motor out of here, it will pull all the wires and so forth with it. Flip it upside down. I love working on package units for this reason. I've got a whole table for all my stuff here. So we got a set screw here. I'm gonna have to get our crescent wrench and take that off. And this one here is going to be easy, a rather easy change out on this motor because this unit has been protected with this awning, and it's not that old. So the unit's not that old. It was 6 years old. So this slides right off of there, as you can see. Sometimes 90% of the time you've got to hit it with some kind of penetrating oil that's going to get rid of that rust that builds up around there, and then you have to come back with some kind of sandpaper and sand all that rust off of there and get it to where this will slide off of here rather easy. But in this case, this is going to be easy money. This slides right off of there, so I can get this new motor put in, slide the fan back on, put the set screw back in, make sure everything's mounted up the way it's supposed to be, wire it up, and they should be back in action. So we're going to flip this fan motor around now, and what I like to do is I like to use the box, and I'll show you guys that. A new box with a new motor in it. Take it out of there, set it to the side. And we can use this box now for a stand. Because when I unscrew these screws that's holding this motor, that fan's going to want to fall out of there. Voila. Well, it's really coming down now. hope you guys can still hear me. I'm going to speak up a little bit, make it easier on everybody here. We got our screws on the top here. Best to get a ratchet set out to get these off of here, but anything will do the trick. Put my gloves on here. Okay, so here's our old motor. Got the old motor out. This one here is internally seized. This motor is bad, and yeah. Okay, so we got a new motor here. Gonna sit it right back in the stand, my homemade stand, and you can see on this motor it has a little wiring diagram. It tells you pretty much how to wire it back with the circumstances you're given. 3-line circuit is the way we're going to go with, or actually 4-line circuit is the way we're going to go with. White's going to go to our common. Black is going to go to our contactor. And this one here gives you 2 separate speeds. So you can see red is low speed, black is high speed. In this scenario, we're going to go back with the low speed. And brown, both of our brown wires will be going to our capacitor. And even give you a wiring diagram right here on the motor. So let's get this thing mounted up. So on this motor here, you can see they actually put the screws on the motor. So you've got to take those screws off. Got one here. Okay, now we can put our top back on here. Sit it down like so. Then we're going to tighten this puppy up. Get it tight to a certain point here, and I'm actually going to mount the motor inside the unit, and then I'll fully tighten it up, get it tight, nice and snug. Now that we've got that all squared away, we can flip this back over, and you can see the difference on the spin of that motor. It's spinning nice and freely. Now this here, you want to put this back to where it's close enough to where the old one used to be. You can sit it as far down as you want to, as long as you're not scraping that motor, and you don't want it hitting that motor, because that's not going to work. So I'm going to put our set screw back in here, and you want to line this set screw with this flat surface of this motor here. That way it gets on there, it bites, and that's really the only thing that holds this fan blade to this motor. So we got that on there. You can see it sliding around. Get it to a perfect spot. And what I like to do is I like to get it to that spot and stick a tool in there, and that'll keep it gapped perfectly where you want it. So that's about right where I want it. If it's too far down on this rescue motor, as you've seen from the other motor, it only had a little stub on it, so this was only up so much. And if it's too far down, what will happen is it'll actually suck air from the top of this unit and not from the coil. So very important you put that back to where it needs to be. Now we've got the set screw, getting it tightened up here. And this here, you want to crank down on this sucker pretty good. Now the torque spec on this thing is about 2 Ooga Doogas. If you don't know what an Ooga Dooga is, you're about to find out. Go 1 Ooga Dooga and 2 Ooga Dooga. Alright, so we got the Ooga Doogas done. He's on there. Give it a nice spin. Make sure it's going to spin freely. We got a ground wire here. This here should be mounted to the top of that motor. And honestly, I have mixed emotions about that, because the motor is already grounded to the unit. But since they give it to you, I'm going to go ahead and serve their purpose and mount it to the top. So you want to stick that down through there. We've got our directional wires here. It's going to be this orange and yellow wire. See if you can see that there. These two wires are going to reverse the polarity. This is a universal motor, so some units have the motor where it's flipped upside down, or whatever the case may be. The fan blade may be the opposite way, or the pitch is opposite. So this allows us to reverse the polarity of the motor and spin the correct way. Before you put this back on the unit, you're going to want to push these down into the area where you can reach it. And I'm going to use this first slot. So I use that first slot to put my wires down in there. Now I've got to put our wires back inside that sleeving. That's another boo-boo a lot of people make, is they just want the easy way out. So they don't put this back in here. And I don't know, I've even seen guys where they cut this. They cut a line down here so they can just slip it right over the top of here. That's actually okay. You know, I have no issues with something like that. It really just keeps the wires covered, and looks a lot more professional. The whole, you know, electric tape around the wires, in my opinion, is not ideal. As you can see, I'm sticking one terminal in at a time, because if you stick all the terminals in at one time, it's just not going to push through. So one terminal at a time, guys, will do the trick. And that way you can get it through there. And what I do is I like to just spin this a little bit, get it to where it'll go through there. And you can see where a little hung up. Well, let me show you something that'll help with that. A little bit of PD blaster. Get it inside there. It's not going to hurt anything. And then we can just push it right through there. And if you do that every time, you're going to be doing it the right way. You're going to feel better about that. and so is the customer, because I've been to calls where the customer calls in and says, I know this ain't right. The last company that came out here, they changed the motor out, but they didn't put the sleeving back on, and all I see is wires everywhere. You know, it's bad enough that they have to see these wires sticking out the top, the polarity wires, and they will complain about that as well. So go ahead and take that extra 2 minutes to give them a good job by pushing this through here and out the other side. And sometimes, you know, it could be a pain in the butt if you're on the rooftop and it's 100 degrees outside. I get it. I totally get it. I've been there, done that. But at the end of the day, you only are as good as what you do. I still can't get in there with my needle nose to get the wires out. They're getting bunched up here at the end. So another trick too is if you have a long enough screwdriver, you can stick it in there, and you see once I stuck it in there, a wire popped out. And as long as you do that to an extent where you're not going to be, you know, messing anything else up as far as hurting the wire, you'll be fine. So we got one wire out here. The red wire was the first one I stuck in there. Got one more wire about to come out of here, and I'm going to get my needle nose pliers and just start pulling them out of there. So typically once you pull on one, they all will come out of there, and I can see down in there, I know you guys can't see in there, but they're getting bunched up. And really a really long screwdriver, I don't have one on me right now, but a really long screwdriver getting inside of there will definitely push those out the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these wires out, and it's going to pull the other wires with it. You know, this is like I said, guys, it takes a couple minutes extra, maybe 5-10 minutes max to do this, but this is what separates the technicians from the hacks. So in my opinion anyways, seems like every hack job I see is just from it being rushed. You know, you're rushing, or whatever the case may be. I don't know, you know, they have to get home, and or maybe they don't want the neighbors to see them out there working on somebody's unit because they're doing unlicensed work. So we got that sleeve back on there. We got all the wires out. You can inspect the wires to see if you nicked anything with your screwdriver. We are in good shape here. So we're going to flip this motor, flip it around, get it mounted up to the unit. And before we do that, we're going to route our wires where they need to go. And on this package unit here, very user friendly. I'm going to stick those down in this hole. I'm going to go over here, and you can see where the wires are supposed to come out. It's supposed to come out right in here, and really just, you can do one wire at a time. It makes it easier on you. Stick one wire through, so one wire at a time does the trick. You can do all the wires if you want. It's totally up to you. At the end of the day, what makes you happy about your work is what matters. So I'm gonna go ahead and do all the wires just because I like to get her done and hit the road. It's kind of hard for me to film this and give you guys a good angle at the same time, so just bear with me here. Got one wire didn't make it. That's our white wire. I'm gonna have to straighten it out a little bit the best you can. Man, I feel like I've been yelling at you guys the whole time because of the rain, but I know that you guys wouldn't be able to hear me if I didn't speak up, so take no offense to that, gentlemen and ladies. Okay, so we got that routed where it needs to be. Now we can go ahead and flip our motor where it needs to be. And just a quick tip for you guys, this motor doesn't have the plugs in there, but these condenser fan motors, most of the time, I think if they're OEM, even the aftermarket ones, the universal ones, will have a plug here, and it's just a little rubber piece that sits in there. You want to take those out on both sides, take those plugs out. Sometimes there's only one, and that'll allow the water, the rainwater or whatever water, if it does get inside the motor, it'll drip out the bottom. So these are designed to get wet. Very carefully put our motor in there, and then you're going to want to route your wiring. So if you get it bunched up, you can just pull the other side of the wires. That's going to get it to where it'll sit in there the way it's supposed to be. Okay, I'll go ahead and secure this motor in here.
Make sure you put the right sleeve back.
All right, so let's go ahead and take care of the wiring part of this. So we've got our 4 wires. These 4 wires, one of them is not going to be used. They give you the red and the black. There's going to be your 2 speed taps, so your hot wire. And in this case, I want it to be on a lower speed. So our red wire is going to go to the top of this contactor where we took our black wire off. The motor comes with spade terminals already on there, so it makes it nice. Get that on there nice and snug. You want to make sure you have a good connection on these. We've got our capacitor here. This one calls for a 7.5 capacitor. It will say it on the box. These, you also want to make sure you have a good connection. If they're too loose, take it back off of there, give it a little squeeze with your pliers, and put it back on. Stick that to the side. So our white wire is going to be our common, and you can go back to the other side of that contactor for your common leg if you'd like to, but me, I'm going to put it back on this capacitor on our common terminal, which is going to be the 4-prong terminal on your capacitor. So now we've got 1 wire left over. It's our black wire here, and what you're going to want to do with that is cut it back and get you a wire nut and put a wire nut on there. To keep it from touching any metal. Get on there nice and tight. It ain't coming off of there. So now we know that's good. We've got our capacitor hooked up. You can put the capacitor inside the cabinet here, and actually that's what I'm going to do. I think I was getting ahead of myself trying to show you guys. And even the wiring, I got ahead of myself, so I made a boo-boo, guys. This is going to happen to you several times in the field, but do the right thing. Take the extra minute, unplug it, run it through your grommet here into your electrical panel. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay guys, so I've got the wires rerouted the way they needed to be in the electrical cabinet. Got everything secured up. I taped the capacitor up pretty good just to secure it to the unit. I don't have a bracket strap. That would be ideal. Make sure that this capacitor is not going to move around. You're not going to get lit up when you take the panel off. And we got everything mounted up, strapped up. I want to show you a little trick here. The old screws from the old motor, if you put them on top of the new screws, it makes it look more ideal for the customer. It doesn't look too, you know, backyard wrenched on. These universal motors, they do look a little funky, and that's just my opinion, but I've also heard that from customers. But you put those on, you'll be good to go. So I'm going to fire this thing up. I've got the ground wire. I pulled that screw screw off of there, put the ground wire on it, put it back on, tighten everything up. Everything's tight, ready to go. I'm going to fire this thing up, make sure it spins the right way with the pitch of the blade, so it's blowing out the top and not sucking air across that coil. If it is sucking air across that coil, I'll just flip these wires around, and I'll show you that real quick. For those that don't know, these wires just pop right out of here, and if it's spinning the wrong way, instead of having yellow to yellow, you're going to have orange to yellow and yellow to orange, and that will reverse the polarity and spin the opposite way. I've already double checked the polarity of the motor on the box. It'll tell you counterclockwise or clockwise, and this is the right way here. So once I fire it up and verify, you never know, it could be a typo on the box. I trust nobody but myself. I will tape these wires up, some electrical tape on these, so that way the customer is not alarmed, and I know that a squirrel's not come over here and chew these wires up and mess up my new motor.